This past week, the Biden administration released over 13,000 files from the National Archives concerning the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Now, JFK's 1963 assassination is basically the nation's original conspiracy theory. And since that fateful day in Dallas, Americans have rightfully questioned the circumstances surrounding the killing. As you know, we are traveling. You might notice a weird backdrop. I'm in Australia, but typically my studio's in Dallas, and you can go visit, right, where JFK was killed. It's a little bit of a tourist trap now. Don't let the people talk to you because they'll charge you for the conversation. But as with many historical events that have already happened, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface than we first glance would make it appear. And what I'm about to say is not only not approved for the mainstream media, but being independent, I take a risk talking about this stuff. So please continue to support us on Locals. You can check out the community below. I'm just going to say it anyways, because while many people were debating whether there were multiple gunmen or some sort of a magic bullet coming out of the building, the more interesting question is, why was Kennedy killed? He's dead. Dead people vote. They don't speak. We all know that. And many have speculated that the CIA had the president killed in the past, or it was like the mafia, maybe even a foreign country like China or Israel. Who knows? But in reality, it appears as though it was actually all of the above. And while there are plenty of pertaining circumstances, like including Kennedy wanting to go back on the gold standard, from my understanding, wanting to get out of certain wars and not promote the military-industrial complex, there is a pointer that we are not supposed to talk about. And these are reasons why I continue to get blacklisted from things, simply because I'm willing to speak about what this other point is. Please continue to take note. Kennedy was shot while riding in his motorcade, right, through Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. And the alleged shooter was a former U.S. Marine by the name of Lee Harvey Oswald. We all know that. You learn that. But here's where your history books lie to you and things begin to get murky. Oswald's childhood was troubled. And while in the military, he was court-martialed several times. Like many men are, he had a disturbing past. But once it was actually for shooting himself in the arm. Okay, so, he was doing what? Into Taking Back Sunday. This guy was self-harming. He eventually defected to the Soviet Union, which is interesting, where he lived for several years. We don't have a lot of information about what went on during that time, but this was all before entering the U.S. Now, after killing JFK, Oswald was himself shot in broad daylight by a man we know less about, but you've probably heard of, Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner. Now, while Fox News, and I salute Tucker Carlson, who we'll look at a little bit later, for talking about some of these releases about JFK and the CIA's involvement, I do want to let you know that there is a fact that is probably a little too sensitive for most ears and will offend you, maybe even slightly. Because Harvey Oswald was murdered by Ruby only 2 days after the killing of the president. This kind of reminds me of the fact that after the Las Vegas shootings, the brother who began to speak out within 48 hours, it might have been 7 days later, but within 48 hours, the FBI found CP on his computers in a separate raid and then locked him up. His charges were eventually dropped. But it's crazy how everybody who could be a witness in any type of government involvement suddenly is murdered and killed. I mean, this is becoming a pattern. Well, Ruby claimed that he was so distraught over JFK's death that he had just needed to get revenge. In reality, everything points to Ruby being deeply involved with organized crime. He was just trying to tie up loose ends, it seems. For his part, Oswald was most likely contracted by the CIA and influenced or directly hired to assassinate the president, but JFK's nephew continues to believe it to this day. It is also a fact that the CIA intentionally manipulated information, tampered with evidence, and harassed witnesses during Warren's commission investigation of the circumstances around the killing. This you probably know. This wouldn't be the first time the CIA attached themselves to a troubled, violent, and mentally unstable person. After all, this is the same organization that fundraised by selling crack to black people. What's up, my bigger? You want to try some crack, Tyrone? Yeah, what's up, CIA? Anyway, it's pretty stupid, but they did do that. And they brainwashed people by melting their mind with LSD and MK Ultra, and then they regularly organized color revolutions around the world, blah, blah, blah. Who really cares, right? It's just reality. But when it comes to Jack Ruby, whose real name, shocker, is Jacob Leon Rubenstein, yikes. Why were you changing your name? I only say yikes because people who change their names usually have something to hide. Not always bad. Sometimes it's a necessity. But people believe he was actually certainly involved with the Jewish mafia based in Chicago. And according to multiple sources, he belonged to a group called the Yiddish Connection. Now, they specialized in prostitution, arms dealing, and narcotics smuggling, all of the CIA's best revenue sources. Rubenstein evidently moved to Dallas with a group of his fellow gangsters in the mafia, the Yiddish boys, and they changed his name and purchased a number of strip clubs to act as fronts for his criminal activity. Well, Ruby died a few years later of cancer, which he actually claimed had been injected into him in place of a vaccine, or maybe the vaccine caused the cancer. We all know vaccines are safe and effective unless they're administered by the government. Oops. Anyway, coincidentally, this occurred just before he was slated to be given a new trial. If you think people can't be arrested or destroyed right before the trial, look at SBF with the FTX crypto scandal. Right before he was slated to testify before Congress, he was arrested. It seems like madness, but it's true. So what is the larger connection here? Why would the government and the Jewish mafia conspire to kill the sitting president? There are a lot of reasons, and many of them you've already heard. You can find them in other videos, but I don't want to give you information you already have. The answer to that question may be a newly formed country in the Middle East. While having only been in existence for 15 years at that point, the Israeli state had set its sight on two goals. The first was to gain as much influence and power around the world as possible, which is based, and I respect a lot, any country that has a nationalist identity and wants to establish itself. I'm not against that notion. I think America should be doing the same thing. In fact, I think we should be admiring the Israeli people for their tenacity and their determination to want to remain in power and the tribalism. It's actually awesome. The fact is, it's only sad when your country doesn't allow it, or it's only allowed for certain people and not for others. But the second of their missions was to acquire the atomic bomb. Now, this has been contentious even to this day. We have the rogue state of North Korea, which has become in our sights that we do not want using or detonating atomic bombs. Israel's original government has essentially been formed out of a violent terrorist organization, the Haganah. Now, they had set up a massive arms smuggling operation from the United States through the Zionists living in America. Figures like Henry Morgenthau, David Ben-Gurion, and others were key players in it. In fact, it's very interesting that Gaddafi, which I'd like to say, also claimed that Israel was behind this assassination because it was about disagreements over the acquisition of an atomic bomb. And before someone stops and says, oh, this is anti-Semitic, no, I am not condemning the Jewish people. I am not somehow targeting Israel as its nation or a right to exist. I'm telling you the fact that they're a superpower and they've been competing with the US for a long time. And they did have an involvement with the assassination, in fact, with the influence of the United States military and CIA as well, because the atomic bomb is a very serious product. And, if you can't defend your country against interference, then, I just don't even care. You shouldn't even watch this show. Because this operation continued even after Israel gained statehood, which is weird because they realized they could get away with just about anything as long as the bribes, threats, and pressure kept flowing, similar to the way things work today. Remember, it was just a few moments ago that Pelosi's husband was involved in a possible sex scandal, getting nailed while he's hammering somebody else in his apartment or in his home, and nobody talks about it. There's a lot of bribes, a lot of scandals, and it just happens. The lines between the Israeli government, the Jewish mafia, and the sections of our own government became blurred. At times, they were all one and the same. And the state began to develop nuclear weapons against the wishes of the U.S. They even went so far as to smuggle nuclear material from a plant near Pittsburgh. Look up the Apollo affair, it's all there. They used the old drug and arms smuggling networks to ship it back to Israel, where it could be enriched into bomb-making material. This is bioscience. You can look more of that up on DuckDuckGo. Now, just take a wild guess as to which U.S. president firmly opposed Israel getting to the bomb. Well, not only do we have this information, but of course, like I said, other leaders who were later assassinated also opposed this. That's right, JFK. Now, you can begin to see the full picture coming into focus. The state of Israel wanted JFK out of the way so that they can continue their weapons development and their nefarious activity with the atomic bomb. They used their contacts in the CIA to arrange the shooting, and then they used their connections with organized crime to tie up the loose ends. While none of this can be proven 100%, it is one of the key factors that nobody wants to talk about. And while I highly respect Fox News' Tucker Carlson for willing to invite Mike Pompeo on his show, former CIA director, and to explain the CIA's involvement, nobody asks who was pulling the strings at the CIA. All of the evidence points to this being the truth, and anybody who would say that this is not the truth just doesn't want you to believe it because it is a harsh reality and hard to swallow. Why would our greatest ally attack us or assassinate our own president? Why would our own deep state listen to them? I want to know as well. This is a journey that I'm currently on. All the information is out there. All the connections are as plain as day for us to see. And it really makes you wonder what our greatest ally and our own government are up to for that matter. This is what the deep state is. It does not matter if it's the US government or a foreign government. I will criticize them unequivocally on this show. I will not cow or bow down to people who will pressure me not to speak on things that are truthful and reality. I won't be baited or pulled into the sideshow performances or any of the bullshit out there. I'm going to keep it 100 and focused on what's going on. If you want to accuse me of anything, like the fact that I'm somehow hateful for trying to get to the bottom of the assassination of one of our presidents, then go ahead and be that fickle, be that petty, and be a retard. But I'm not going to take that angle. If you have any type of 401k, retirement plan, or savings, I just found out that 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck because many times their savings have been wiped out right now by the collapsing stock market. Don't let that be you. My friends at Goldco have a special plan. So if you call them right now at 855-242-4758, that's 855-242-4758, or click the link in the description to fill out the form, they can help you find out how you can protect your savings, your retirement, and the money that you worked hard to earn in gold and silver, which has withstood the fluctuations over the test of time. And if you call them right now, you can get up to $10,000 of free silver. Guys, do not wait until it's too late. I don't want you to be another victim of another scam that's out there with crypto, or to find yourself in a stock market that's outside of your control and is using your money to benefit someone at the top. Invest in gold and silver today with my friends at Goldco before it's too late. Remember, they support you, they support this show, and most importantly, they continue to keep this information on the air as it's increasingly becoming difficult to get the word out into the public with all the censorship. Call my friends at Goldco. Protect yourself, your savings, 855-242-4758, or click the link in the description. Fill out the form. Even if you're not sure, just fill it out, and it's amazing. Check it out today.